Start. Okay, welcome back to Mixed Media Live. We're back for another week. We're actually on time today, which is a huge feat. Shout out to Random Chance for allowing us to be live today. Happy Mixed Media Monday. I don't know if 909 Crime is in the chat right now, but he's come up with that term. I'm really sad that I did come up with the term first, because it is such a great term. But we've got another great episode planned ahead. And first, if you haven't been around before for one of these episodes, we're Mixed Media. We're a live show happening every Monday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We talk about anything pretty much art-related that you could possibly think of, from our different angles and perspectives. It's an interesting time. Anything from philosophy to business to, I don't know, you name it. Reviewing things, reviewing indie works, interviewing people, as we have today, which is going to be fun. And yeah, that's what we do. And I guess we should introduce ourselves. So my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur.
Hi, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and a media composer.
Nathan Nestor. I'm a game developer and 3D modeler. And my Wi-Fi is dying, so if I cut out, that's what's going on.
Yikes.
I'm Jaslyn Lopez. I'm a college student and an entrepreneur and a artist.
Sweet. Yeah, and we have Jaslyn on the show today, which is really exciting, because I get to interrogate. No, I'm just kidding. Get to talk to her about her life and what she's interested in later on the show, so definitely stay tuned for that. In the meantime, though, how are you guys' weeks? What's been up in y'all's lands?
It's been okay. I last podcast was talking about, I guess, the highly technical life, or words are not working. The high technicality that has entered my life due to switching to Linux and trying to get my workflow set up again. And I finally pretty much figured it all out. I have abandoned all Adobe products, but other than that, we have remained unscathed. That is the only thing that I do not have. But otherwise, I'm able to produce music and whatnot in a new DAW. So I have to kind of learn that again. And 3D modeling is going fine. Game development is going fine.
Yeah, for me, I don't know. A lot of intense work on flute this week. Working on a lot of D sharp to F sharp and E to F sharp stuff, which is, if you're a flute player, those are like some of the trickiest finger spots on the instrument.
Cool. Well, I guess not cool. But yeah.
Well, so far for me, it's been pretty crazy. I'm sure that'll die down by next month, but as for now, I still don't know what day it is. But I've just been working on school. My classes are ending this week, so thank God I have time. And I've just been working on my side business and kind of working on, Auriela stuff as well.
Yep, and speaking of that stuff, I've still been growing accustomed to having a lot of people to talk to all the time at Auriela, which is cool. I mean, awesome people doing great jobs over there. Last time we had someone on, it was Liberty, which feels like a million years ago. I don't remember how long ago that was. That was like maybe 2 months ago. I don't know.
That was right before I. I want to say that's like May 10th, I think.
Oh, okay. Time is an illusion.
Yeah. Before I missed us flying back to Maryland.
Yeah. So that stuff's been happening, but simultaneously, the whole moving thing that I've been talking about for so long has been insane. I went to Pennsylvania this last weekend again to check out a sort of stopgap solution until we figure out our final, place that we're going to be. Looking at a month-to-month place. Ended up not being so great. Ended up not signing anything, and now our lease is running up, so that's kind of insane. So aside from trying to maintain everything, and yeah, it just feels a little insane, but it'll end eventually, is what I hope. At least it'll end. So yeah, other than that, yeah, it's been mostly just handling that stuff. How about in the news? Any interesting news?
Well, I think I hardly need to say this if you are a fan of film music at all, but in case you don't keep track of film music, the big film music news is that a couple days ago, I think it was first in a Washington Post article interviewing John Williams. He sort of announced his retirement. He says, quote, at the moment I'm working on Indiana Jones 5, which Harrison Ford, who's quite a bit younger than I am, I think he has announced this will be his last film. So I thought, if Harrison can do it, then perhaps I can also. Though he notes that he wants to spend most of his time not giving up composing, but focusing on non-film composing, though he does not officially rule out doing another film in the future. He sounds like it's kind of the last film score he will be writing. So, it's significant if you are a fan of film music, probably the most significant film music composer in America, certainly. Obviously, we've talked about him a lot. We'll talk about him later on the show today, because you can't not talk about him. So yeah, we could be getting the final John Williams film score very shortly.
Is there any stated reason why?
Well, I mean,
other than he's ancient.
Yeah, he's right. I think it's his 90th birthday this week, so I think probably my guess, based on what kind of the rest of the interviews, that he just kind of wants to use his remaining time to focus on things that are, that he has full artistic control over and that don't require as much time to create, I guess.
Interesting. For me, break up the order a little bit. I noticed, the only thing pretty much I noticed was that Top Gun crossed $1 billion in total revenue, which is kind of insane. I think a few episodes back I misquoted the amount of sales it made, because I was highly confused, because there was like this very specific box office record that was like, he broke this record. And I was looking at the numbers, I couldn't wrap my head around it. I was like, how does this break the record? It's because I was looking at the wrong number on the article that I was looking at. So it actually was quite the successful opening weekend. And it crossed $1 billion. And what's really notable is the way that Tom Cruise is sort of coming out of the project in the way that he's, I guess, treating the success, which is very much so not so much self-aggrandizing as much as it is talking about how this is good for the industry, how he's glad that fans have come back to the theater. It really mirrors the way that he opened up the film with a little statement at the beginning, basically saying, we made this film for you, which was a very important thing for a lot of fans to hear, because it feels very much so not that way a lot of times these days. So, yeah, that's I thought that was pretty cool. How about you, Nathan? Any gaming news?
Yeah. So firstly, someone wrote, a YouTuber named Upper Echelon Gamers, a 72-page document claiming to work for CD Projekt Red, explaining that the reason, or actually, I don't know if he's claiming to work for CD Projekt Red or another company called Quantic Labs, presumably one or the other. Both these companies worked on Cyberpunk 2077. Of course, CD Projekt Red being the main development front, and then Quantic Labs being a QA company. So their job was to make sure that there were no bugs in the game and whatnot, which or at least report the bugs that they found. And as we know, the game was kind of a buggy mess. So in the 72-page document, he says that Quantic, the problem might have actually been mostly Quantic Labs' fault, and that they over-exaggerated the size of the team that was working on Cyberpunk 2077 in order to keep the contract. That they said their team was made up of senior staff when, in fact, everyone working there everyone on the team had been working for less than 6 months in that field. And they also say that Quantic Labs had a daily quota of reported bugs, which ended up causing them to not find enough bugs and pretty much report useless bugs or things that were not really bugs, that soaked up dev time. So I don't know the validity of any of this. There's a whole video on it. I didn't watch it, so I'm not gonna. I mean, I just found out about this not long ago, so perhaps I'll watch it later. The second thing is I don't know, for some reason a lot of you might have noticed if you try to play Minecraft, which I haven't played Minecraft in a long time, right? It's not something I generally play. Semi recently, I was like, okay, let me play this, right, with a friend, and I was greeted with a message telling me to migrate my Mojang account to a Microsoft account or something like that, something weird like that, right? Like whatever. Well, there's an issue with that. I can't actually do that, but I'm not going to explain why. But that seemed to be relatively harmless, but relatively recently, I think like within this week, Microsoft or Mojang, I don't know which one, announced that they would be adding reporting players to be banned and whatnot to the game. That's been a thing always in Bedrock Edition, but not a thing in Java Edition. It causes certain issues with things like certain servers are intentionally unmoderated. And how are you going to police every server? It seemed like it'll become a YouTube syndrome where people are getting, in case of YouTube, demonetized for no reason. In case of Minecraft, you might just get banned randomly. Things like this. And there are like certain servers the popular 2B2T, whose whole thing is that it's unmoderated. How is that server going to function? So, I mean, one solution is just to not update the Minecraft version that the server is running on. But the issue is they're probably going to want to update eventually, right? Or else they'll be stuck at whatever the latest version is before this forever. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for news.
Sweet. Cool. Jaslyn, you notice anything?
I am unprepared for any news. I have been so into my own world that I could not internet lately. I apologize.
No apologies at all. No, that's me like half the week, so that's totally fine. There's like literally unusable news segments that we have sometimes where it's just like us saying, yeah, we didn't really focus on what was going on. So yeah, that's pretty normal. So yeah, I guess I'll close out the segment explaining a little bit about mixed media, and hopefully people will filter in. If you're listening to this live right now, we're going to be transitioning into our next segment. That's because this is a show that you can listen to in podcast form primarily. So if you go to Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Pandora, literally anywhere, Apple Podcasts, you go anywhere, you can find our podcast and listen to our unrequested opinions about literally anything you want over there. Yeah, if you enjoy any of that, if your podcasting platform has a star rating system or a numeral rating system, however it is, give us a rating, be honest, and put in the comments how we can improve, especially if we're not 5 out of 5. That'd be perfectly great for us to understand how we can improve the show and what you want to see into the future. That being said, I wanted to give a shout out to two awesome people. That's 909 Crime and Rob Shamra, who are supporting us right now at mixedmedia.locals.com. And here are the perks. I'll flash them up on the screen for becoming a subscriber. And one of the greatest things that no one has ever done yet is this whiteboard on the side here is perfectly live. Let's see if I can pull it up. Let's see if I can show off how awesome this is. Let me pull up the live whiteboard. Now, we don't use it as often as we probably should on our ends. But this whiteboard here, oh, there you go, is absolutely live. Meaning, if you want access to that live whiteboard, this way, then you've got to go to mixedmedia.locals.com. The link is also in the description, or if you go to mixedmediapodcast.com, you can find links to literally anything you want or need over there. So with that, we'll transition over to our first major segment, which is our interview with Jaslyn. And and here we go.
Mixed Media Movies.
And welcome back to Mixed Media. If you've been watching the live show, we've been here. But if you're listening in post, this is also a live show. So if you go to mixedmediapodcast.com, you can find a link to our YouTube and Rumble and Twitch, where we're always streaming live Mondays at 9:30 p.m. And I should get in the habit of doing this more, but I guess we should introduce our names real quick at the top of this. So my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and a media entrepreneur.
Hi, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and a media composer.
Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and game developer.
I'm Jaslyn Lopez. I'm a college student, an entrepreneur, and an artist.
Sweet. And Jaslyn is the fourth voice today, which means that she's the one who's being interviewed, which means that I've got to come up with interesting things to say to elicit interesting responses from her. But first question, this is always a good question because then we can sort of branch off from here. Well, actually, this is a better first question. How do I know you? What do you do?
Well, I do a lot of things. I mean, I can't really put my finger on anything specific, you know? I mean, there's not one thing that I truly love. It just branches off into one thing because one thing leads to another, you know? It's just kind of how art works.
Yeah, for sure. And you're working with Auriela, no? For the internship.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I was not expecting to end up working with a film company, but here I am.
Yep. We've got a special project in the tuck, which is something that you'll definitely be playing a leading role on this summer, which is pretty cool. But we can't talk about it, so that's the unfortunate part. But yeah, so how did you get to art in general? Like, how did you was there a time when you were younger where you were like, I like drawing? Like, how did that journey look for you?
Well, pretty much it started off that way when I was little. I just always liked drawing, and then, I wasn't bad at all. And then, one day, I don't mean to, throw my dad under the bus, but he was like, oh, artists don't make money, So I was like, oh, I kind of need to change what I'm going to do now. So I kind of put it aside for a little bit. And then once I finally went to college, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to start taking this up again because it's not like he thought it was, that, it's changed so much more.
Wow, that's a whole thing to open up right there because
Yeah.
it's something I talk about a lot. But I'm going to try to avoid going down that path real quick. Was drawing in particular, because I know you do like some 3D modeling stuff. I know, like, how did things evolve over time, and how did you sort of develop your artistic skills?
Oh, goodness. Well, like I mentioned, it all started with drawing when I was little, and then I put that aside. And from once I really started at college is when it all kind of started blossoming into different avenues for me. Because, my classes, I'm a game design and development major. And so I had to start doing a lot of like 3D modeling classes, like animation classes, and I just fell in love with all of it. And Adobe is just my home.
Very cool. So yeah, I mean, I think we all have somewhat of an experience with the whole "you're going to be poor forever" if you go down this road. I think we all have our versions of that story. But yeah, I mean, what sorts of things changed your mind? Like, what was the realization that did happen?
I kind of have to say, once I got my 3D printer, I was like, I could make anything that I want. And all I need to know how to do is to 3D model. And since, I've been in school, I've, kind of learned how to do it. I'm pretty intermediate with it, but I can create some pretty gnarly stuff. But ever since then, I was just like, if I can just put my mind to it, I can make anything I want without really spending much money. So I was just kind of from there is where it just went haywire.
Cool. And you started your own Etsy page, if I remember correctly. Maybe.
Yeah, I started a little Etsy shop called Hearth Prints. I'm branching off into a website. It's taking forever to, model it because that's how that happens. But yeah, I did start doing that. We've been open since I probably want to say a year or so now. And we first got our international order yesterday.
Oh,
so
wow.
I was excited about that. It went to Paris.
Congrats.
And thank you. And we just got our first bulk order for about $100, and that went to California. So I was excited for that too. But as I mentioned, it's literally just me. So I'm modeling, I'm manufacturing, I'm packaging, I'm photoshopping, I'm posting, I'm everything. And it's just crazy.
Yep. But it feels good when you make your first dollar, no? Like when you're like,
Exactly.
I generated this like basically from my own, just on my own. I generated this money, which is pretty crazy feeling.
Can you say the name of your businesses again?
It's Hearth Prints, Hearth, like home.
Right. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. If you could put that in the chat, Nathan, that'd be good for sure.
I gotcha.
Yeah, so like what sorts of prints do you do for your company?
A lot. I do anything that I really find interesting, like from cookie cutters to I mostly specialize in game pieces. I have like DIY pieces where and they come with like little paint sets and paint brushes, and people can order them raw and they just paint them themselves. Like I pretty much will do anything that I can. Like I have cardstock, I have custom envelopes and business cards, and I soon hope to branch out into apparel and anything kind of on that level. But for now, it's mostly just prints that I can do.
Yeah, awesome.
Can I ask? I just pulled up a site. I'm looking at this. Like, what's the use for this stuff? Like, you have all these like houses and whatever models, 3D model houses. Like, what would the functionality of that be?
Well, they're mostly for like a D&D. I was assuming people would like buy them for. Until I get a resin printer, then I could make the models a bit smaller. But for now, they're mostly for anything that anyone wants to use them for, really.
Yeah, people make like miniature like sets and stuff like that too, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I've had people just send me pictures of things, be like, hey, can you like 3D model this? And because I bought it in some crappy wood and it's giving me splinters, but I want it nice. So, and then I would just try to recreate it the best I can and just send it out to them.
Yeah, we already have Stephanie Costello in the chat asking for your Etsy shop, so there you go.
Oh, well,
Hopefully drive some people to your
I just
page.
posted the link.
Cool, awesome. Now, speaking of clients, like, how does that sort of custom work, go? Is it something you like to do, or do you like to stick with, the stuff that you come up with and then selling that?
Well, I definitely love to give myself a challenge, so I will try the best I can to, try to make someone happy in, the views of what they wanted, So it's just, I don't know. It's just really interesting because I can get so many different types of new skills from creating different things, and it branches out to many different ideas of things that I can create.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's like for me, like I like client work. Cause it's weird because it's like a double-edged sword because it's like doesn't get to be your project, but they make a project happen, which is like always fun. Then you can sort of try to fulfill the challenge. But then there's always that fear every time I pick up a new client that is this one going to be insane?
Yeah.
Most of the time that's not the case, but sometimes you run into the crazy, and can be a little bit.
Hopefully I don't, but I haven't yet, but I'm, it's bound to happen.
Yeah. I remember early on when I was doing Fiverr projects at the start of the business, there was I think there was this guy who was a wrestler. I can't remember his name. He's like, and I looked him up. He is who he says he is. And he has all this crazy old MMA footage from the start of MMA. I'm not going to mention his name for obvious reasons. But he was insane. He was absolutely insane. What he wanted was ever changing, and he couldn't remember what he told me yesterday. I don't know if there's any drug abuse that been causing this behavior or not, but yeah, that's one of the most notable clients I've ever had, because he typed in all caps unironically, and just had these very specific ways of putting everything that was not clear at all, and he thought he was brilliant. But yeah, shout out to the crazy clients. Cool. Now, so what are your goals going forward then? You have your little shop. Do you imagine it becoming something huge, or where do you see yourself going with everything? What do you want your life to look like as an artist? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Well, so far I see myself never getting any sleep, because I kind of don't mind where I end up as long as it's something that I enjoy doing. But I definitely do imagine seeing Hearth Prince as something bigger than it is. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I could maybe even branch out to, creating 3D homes, because I know that's been a new big thing that's been happening. And I would definitely like to try to, help out humanity as much as I can with that, So fingers crossed if I can get it big enough.
Very cool. Yeah. Hopefully I can, as things get smoother at the company, hopefully I can help to contribute to some of that business knowledge too, and see things grow from that perspective as well.
Just make sure you do get some sleep.
Yeah.
Don't ignore that. That's my advice.
Yeah, I concur. Although sometimes I'm not following my own advice. So.
Well, I'm not saying you can get as much sleep as you want all the time, but don't forget it.
Yeah.
No, I get you. It's, I'm one of those people where naps do not exist. Once I am awake, and it's nearing my bedtime soon. And then I get probably at least 6 hours, and then once I'm up, and my brain just will not stop.
Now, there's a whole other aspect to the stuff you do in the sort of gaming side of things. How did you get interested in gaming and all that kind of stuff?
Well, it all started when I was little, yet again. I grew up with all boys. I'm the only girl, and, I was
How many
a tomboy.
brothers?
3.
Wow.
And they're all older than me, so yeah, I got picked on a lot. But yeah, it started with I would say Nintendo 64 with The Legend of Zelda, and then from there, video games became the biggest part of my life, and I have not stopped playing them since. And once I went into college, I was not sure at all what I wanted to do. I know I wanted to do art, but then art branches off so many ways. It's like a big tree, And so then I was just like, I'm just going to try video games. I've loved it ever since I was little, and it kind of incorporates a lot of the things that I like to do. So I just kind of gave that a shot, and I like it a lot. I've loved it ever since.
Cool. Do you have a sort of favorite genre of game? What do you like to play?
Oh, goodness. I have so many. I'm one of those people that buy games and, I play it a little or I don't even get to. Like, I have some games that I haven't even gotten to, like, probably at least over 5. But it's just, I like anything from Assassin's Creed mostly, Monster Hunter, there's, GTA, Call of Duty is definitely a big one. It just branches a lot. Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, I can go on and on and on.
Yeah, you probably stomp me at most of those games.
Oh, I'm a better gamer than my boyfriend, and he's very upset about it, but he's
You need to get on stream so we can get the live 360 no scopes of all the noobs you're fragging on the servers. No, that's cool. Cool. Yeah. So in terms of like design, like, have you had experience doing game design stuff? And what sort of aspects of like creation do you like?
Well, I have created about 3 games. I would say I've come up with a concept for 1, but 3 games I have completed. One of them is called The Virus Amongst Us, which is when our team first got together, is as soon as COVID happened, so that's where the name came from. Our team was called Dumpster Fire. And it was, pretty much about the virus and, getting through it. And our second game is related to that one, and it's called Space Race. So you end up leaving Earth to space. They're both PC games. And then we had to come up with an analog game as well, which was mostly I was the project lead for it because everything was remote. So it was kind of hard to get people together to try out a board game, So I kind of had to come up with the rule set and the prototype and all of that on my own. But I definitely give credit to my team, but it was difficult. But I have created those 3 games at least, yeah.
A question, if Irving doesn't mind, before he moves on. A lot of questions that people have when they're starting out from game development. Well, firstly, they ask themselves, do I want to go solo for like an indie project, or do I want to do it a small group thing? You went the group route. How did you end up finding your group members? Were they like already friends, or did you have to look for them?
Well, it was just pretty much whoever was in the class at that time, and it was very difficult because no one was registering for college at the time because of what was going on, and so we had to make 3 games with 7 people, and there's usually at least 20 people in the class to make games. So it was a difficult time.
You did it for a class?
Yeah, it was for school, and our games were published through the college.
Gotcha. Man, I wish I had classes where I had to make games. It sounds sick.
Yeah, it was a final game project. We had to we had the same team for, I think, 3 years, and then the first year of the class you had to come up with a whole concept of one game on your own with art, flow charts, the GDD, the PDD. You had to get it all.
Right, gotcha. Cool.
What the heck are those? The whatever acronyms you said.
The game design documents.
Yeah, the game design documents, basically. Like you have the PDD, which is the one before. It's just, kind of like a draft of the GDD, which is then you incorporate all of your flowcharts, which I would have never even thought flowcharts went into a video game, but apparently they do.
Yeah, I didn't even know what those things were. It's like, so there's the document. Is there there's the brain document that everything connects to? That's interesting. Cool. But what aspects of game creation do you like the most, or do you just love to do everything, pretty much?
Pretty much everything, but I do like to create more and come up with concepts as much as I can.
Cool. Yeah. What was I gonna say? Yeah, so for, working with a group, You know, you were mentioning college project group work. Some negative associations came to mind, but how was your experience? Like, is it easy to find people in the circles you are of people who are motivated and willing to put their all into something the way you are, or how was that?
Well, throughout my time there, I've definitely gained some relationships that have maintained. Like, one of my members is actually helping me with my company every once in a while. Like, if I get a client that wants, a logo or something, I'll be like, hey, can you come up with something, real quick, and we'll pitch it to him, see if he likes it. But other than that, it's pretty difficult to gain the networks, for that industry, because especially since when I started college, everything was yet again remote. So we didn't really get all of the opportunities to go on, those trips so that we could network. So it was kind of a bit of a more difficult time.
Yeah, that's understandable. That's understandable entirely.
Yeah. But the people that you end up meeting they do become very contributed to any ideas that you're willing and open to. Like, he also pitched me an idea for a board game that he wants to create that's like mages and kind of like a D&D like, but not entirely.
Yeah, that's something I didn't ask you about the other games. Like, what types of games are they that you made? Are they, like, what sort of genre do they fit in? Describe them.
Mm-hmm. Well, The Virus Amongst Us was an 8-bit side-scroller. So it was probably like a 20-minute game. But that was, yeah, an RPG for that one, as well as Space Race, which that one was a multi-style game. So we had a top-down view in that game, as well as like kind of like the game Asteroid. So where you would like fly around the screen, and then at certain parts we would have cutscenes, and then it would go into a different view style of the game. And then for Moon Miner, it was a card game, and yeah, it was I guess it would be like an RPG kind of game.
Cool. Awesome. Now, does gaming, do you think, in terms of like your own professional work, do you think that has a place in your life too? Like, are you gonna try to pursue both paths and go crazy?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I can't not see myself not loving video games or being a part of it somehow. Like, I feel like it pulls me,
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Oh yeah, and I should ask, of course we can't talk about our particular project that we're working on, but what is your sort of experience with eSports, and do you have any sort of opinions about that world at all and stuff going on there?
Well, I think it's very interesting. It is also very something new that no one really is trying to touch on as much as they should, But I am a part of the eSports team that they recently created for our college. So I go down there sometimes, probably like twice a week, and we practice gaming, and and we I think it's Apex Legends that they have, and a few other ones that I forget. Smash is one of them. That's one of them that I practice a lot.
Cool. And are there like tournaments, like is it intercollegiate? Is it like, how does it work with your school's esports team?
Oh, well, yeah, there are tournaments with other colleges. So sometimes like they'll go over there, or sometimes it'll be remote, or sometimes vice versa.
Cool. Yeah.
In traditional sports, usually you draft players for professional from colleges, for example. But I don't think that's how that works ever in esports, right? Because my college is an esports team too, right? These people are good. I go to a pretty big college, so there's a big talent pool, I guess. I remember I wanted to try out for the Rocket League team, see if I'd get in or whatever. And I went to a Discord server and asked like, what rank do you usually have to be or whatever. And he was like, oh yeah, we have like what's the we have grand champs. I was like, oh okay, I'm not a grand champ, so I just didn't do it. But that was like their minimum. Their minimum was champ. I think their minimum they had like 3 tiers of teams. Their lowest one was champ, I think, right? Champ and grand champ on their lowest team. I can't remember the name of the rank that they added. That's like the best rank, but they have those at their top team. And I'm like, wow, how like it's kind of crazy. I feel like it would be useful if I wonder if this happens if esports teams like go scouting at like college games. I have no idea.
Well, I'm pretty sure they do. I mean, our team is relatively new, so we kind of don't have tiers yet until we establish, who's the better player. But I'm almost positive that they do have scouters that go out to get the best players, I guess.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if you know what the current landscape looks like from your perspective, but I'm interested. Do you hear of people getting picked up by franchises or by teams, at all? And like, are people like actually gunning for that, like in your esports team, or are they mostly thinking about it as like a pastime?
Well, I feel like it would kind of be more of a pastime for them. But I mean, some of them could be taking it seriously, but it's just for to be a part of the team, you need to be a full-time student, and I think you can only be at that college, and then you end up transferring over. So it's like kind of, I think you end up going to a different team. So like I'm not entirely sure how that works.
Cool. Yeah, because I feel like pretty much in not the United States, the sort of esports, the esports establishments are frequenting colleges a little bit more than they are here, but I wasn't sure exactly how much more or whatever. But that's interesting. Now, do you have a favorite game? Just a favorite game, period. It's a little unfair question, but
favorite game, goodness. I feel like I would still have to say Legend of Zelda. I mean, because they're still coming out with great hitters, and they're about to drop another one next year.
That reminds me, actually. Apparently, there's a controversy over. Disclaimer, and this is going to be blasphemous. I have not played a single Zelda game. I'm sorry to all the people out there who I'm offending. I have not played a single Zelda game, and that's on me. But I know there's controversy about the newer sort of play style and art style and stuff like that. Like, what's your take on that stuff?
I love it, because it's only going to become more different, art progresses so much that the styles of the game are going to continuously change if they keep making them. So, I mean, I can't complain. I mean, I loved Wind Waker, which was a very cartoony game. A lot of people didn't like it. I loved it. Breath of the Wild is kind of a more real, but still a bit cartoony. Twilight Princess was a little more on the dark style, sorry. But it's they all vary, so I can't hate it,
So are you like a super? Well, I was gonna be a double entendre by accident, but a super, Nintendo fan. Are you really into Nintendo games design more so than what other studios sort of produce, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I would have to say I'm more of a PlayStation girl, because but Nintendo is what started it. But I am more PlayStation than I am Nintendo nowadays.
Cool. Very cool. I'm just going to ask you one last question, unless Nathan has more questions or Ben has more questions in general. Go
maybe,
ahead.
Yeah, actually, I had one thought.
Go ahead.
What made you gravitate towards the PlayStation specifically?
What made me gravitate towards the PlayStation? That is a very good question. Nothing I really, contemplated. But I think I would have to say Call of Duty, honestly. Like the first games that were coming out. Because I was really obsessed with zombies, and I still am.
Nice, gotcha.
Zombies. That's throwback. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. All right, so my last question is a traditional question that we ask every single one of our guests that come on here, because we are so spicy sometimes on this show with our unpopular opinions. Sometimes, what is one hot take about literally anything, whether it's gaming related or I don't know, maybe even 3D printing related, whatever, about whatever. One opinion that you might have that maybe many other people may not have. Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, you really are, because that's a good question. One opinion that I have, I would say to just pretty much go to school. I know it sounds very corny, but it's what really pushed me and made me do what I wanted to do. Like it made me gain all these new experiences and skills that I've managed to create my own business that is flourishing, and without that I would have never have even really tried to have attempted everything that I know how to do now.
That is truly a hot take. That's cool.
It sounds very cheesy, I know. And I try to push my friends, and they're just like, oh, and I'm just like, but it really helps you. Like, I feel like I'm still hopeful. Like, there's still a future ahead of me,
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, I had probably a very different experience than you in college. I went to school for the wrong thing entirely, pretty much. And I guess despite what you would expect at such an institution, most people weren't very serious about what they were doing. A lot of painful group projects where you're doing pretty much everything because no one else is competent. So it's like, it's interesting because I feel like I hear all kinds of different experiences, and it's why, like, whenever, I think this has come up on Arguing with Reddit a few times about the question of whether or not you should go to school or whatever. It's always like, I mean, it seems as though the experiences vary so much that I could never give you a blanket, like, statement, It's like, for me, I would not have redone it the way I did it. I probably would just not skipped college entirely and just gone straight into it. But that's not for everyone. So it's like, it varies so much. 909 Crime says Mixed Media Mondays. Woot woot. Sup. Were you gonna say something, Ben? Oh, okay.
No. I see. Although Irving and I went to the same undergraduate program, I think we had different experiences too. I mean, granted, I created my own major and basically did whatever I wanted all by myself, so I didn't really have to worry about group projects or anything like that, and I just did whatever I wanted to do, right? So I don't know, different experience, same school. So yeah, it really varies.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, as 909 comes in, I guess. Well, are you going to hang around for Arguing with Reddit? It's up to you. Oh, you said that, but you said you're on a schedule, right, tonight?
Oh yeah, I'm actually I was supposed to clock out 23 minutes ago.
Okay. All right.
And, I am getting a little tired.
That's okay. Yeah. No, but thank you for being on and sharing your story and your experiences and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely check out, those of you in the chat, Hearth Prince. That's HEARTH Prince. The link is in the chat, and in the final show, I will put the link in the description as well. So with that, you can head out whenever you want.
Thank you guys for having me. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Sweet. All right.
I have a question, real quick.
Okay.
How did you make a major, and what was it exactly?
Oh yeah. Yes. Also, I guess 909 Crime is kind of asking about that too. What did I do? Well, so my undergraduate degree is a Bachelor of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies, which means nothing, right? But that's what you get if you create your own major at Hopkins. So I had to get my own advisor, and I had to write a whole general plan of what I wanted to do, and send it to the head of the some important person in the administration who had to approve it. And then each class I took, I had to write up why I wanted to take that, what it was going to do for my life, and that's basically it. So yeah, what I created was kind of combining a lot of music stuff at Peabody and Russian literature and history stuff at Hopkins. So kind of Russian music, we'll call it. And so that's what I did. But the Russian language program was not terribly intense. There's only a few of us in it, and it was on the way out. The school axed it right after I graduated. It's a whole other story. But anyway, I guess, yeah, I feel like I cheated at Hopkins. I had to choose whatever class I wanted to take. I had to write a couple sentences about why I wanted to take it, what it was going to do for my life. But it was never not approved. So, I just took whatever classes I wanted to take. I didn't have somebody, telling me you must take these classes in order to graduate. I had a number of credits I had to take. That's it.
Right. Wow. That's okay. Sounds pretty nice.
It was zero competition, certainly.
That's pretty cool. And what I wish you had the right idea. You had the entirely right idea in terms of how to go through college.
Well, it was not the idea at the start. That's a whole nother how I ended up doing what I did and how I ended up where I am now. Which I didn't walk into the day one of freshman year thinking this is what I was going to be doing with my life.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I guess we'll go into the next segment. Sweet. All right, so if you're listening to this in post, this is the end of the segment, but we'll be coming back in just a moment to play a little Arguing with Reddit, where we'll be talking about some hot takes on Reddit about gaming in general. Yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say, so subscribe if you want to check that out. Let me switch this up. And here we go.
Mixed Media Gaming.
Nathan. That's a funny transition.
I completely zoned out. I don't know. I was zoned out. I wasn't even thinking about anything.
You should just replay just redo it.
Redo that.
I'll redo it. That was a very memeable moment right there. Wow. All right, let's try that again.
What you get if you watch
Mixed
live.
Media Gaming.
Oh no, we gotta do it a third time. Sorry, I didn't realize you're gonna speak then. These are the hijinks.
Again, it's why you watch. That's why you watch this live. You also can't. If you're listening too, you don't get you don't know what just happened.
Exactly. All right, let's try this a third time. Third time's a try. 3,
right.
2, 1.
Mixed Media Gaming.
Welcome to Mixed Media Gaming. We are back. We just had a section before. Irving section was an interview with Jaslyn, one of the interns for Auriela Productions. So yeah, that was certainly interesting. I'm trying not to laugh here since I botched the last introduction, or lack thereof, I guess. But I've managed. So, all right, and I'll be arguing with Reddit, the gaming segment.
Yeah. While I'm pulling up or fixing the next template, because that's also about to be a little bit wonky, just want to give a shout out to 909 Crime and Rob Sharma for supporting us at mixedmedia.locals.com. For $5 a month, you get some perks that they get as well over there too. Wow, that is the wrong one I'm editing. So
Before we get started, should we introduce ourselves again?
Yes, this is true.
Always say we're supposed to do at the start of each segment.
This segment introduction is crazy.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not editing it.
Yeah, shout out to the interns. Yeah, so my name is Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called Auriela, and you can visit my website at auriela.co.
Hi, I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flute player and a media composer.
I'm Nathan Nestor. I'm a 3D modeler and game developer.
Great. Okay, so we're finally ready to play Arguing with Reddit. So let's pull that up. Oh, great! Nothing's broken. That's good. Okay, so actually, Nathan, you want to explain what Arguing with Reddit is?
Sure. Arguing with Reddit is a patent-pending product of the Mixed Media podcast, where we look at various posts on Reddit. In this case, we'll be talking about gaming, from gaming subreddits probably, and I'll be reacting to them, or arguing with them, or agreeing with them, whatever. I don't know what these Reddit posts are. I haven't looked at them prior, except one, which I've chosen myself. The other ones, the co-hosts have chosen for me. So yeah, it'll be a big surprise.
Yeah. So let me pull up the first one here. Now, the Reddit has changed the way that it formats its pages so that it's like different now for different subreddits, which is extremely inconvenient for the nice formatting that I had before. So this is about to look a little wild. In fact, here, I'll actually pull up the little window so it doesn't look too wild. Here it is. Tiny little window. I'll fix it as we go. In fact, I'll pull it off now. And I'll put the link in the chat actually. There's the hot take. This one's from you, Nathan, so if you want to explain it while I'm pulling it up, you can go ahead.
Right. What was it? Oh yeah, I remember. The Reddit post is more of a question. It's less of a hot take of some sort. It's more of a question that might elicit some hot takes on what games. I don't know what the exact wording was, but something like, what games had you opening the most tabs or whatever while you're playing it? The idea being like, what is like the most complicated games where you have to like read a manual off the internet while you're playing it, essentially. Yeah, there were some ideas given in the Reddit post comment section. I'll link to the things and post in the chat, right? I can look at it. Okay. Yeah, I think there are a lot of games here that I recognize, but I don't never played myself. A lot of games I straight up don't recognize. Well, actually, there are only a couple, right? Some of these are pretty surprising. I played, for example, Warframe. Warframe, it's a game that is it's not complicated. It's just like full of things. There's so many things in it that I used to play Warframe. I think it was in middle school. I used to play it. Then I think sometime during either late high school or early college, something like that, I decided, oh wow, this was a really old game I used to play. Let me try it again. I opened the game, I had no idea what was going on anymore, and I just couldn't play it. I couldn't play it for any more than 15 minutes. I gave up. It was so it was like I felt like an old man at that point. It's like a game that's been growing up for like 30 years. I just I've finally seen it once again, and everything has changed. But I feel like you don't actually require to have actually, I have the post open. Let's see, the exact words. The exact question is, what game? Or English is bad. Let me fix it. What is a game that you have played that needs the most tabs to understand stuff? All right. So yeah, I mean, the thing is, you don't need it. You really don't. I think you probably don't actually need to read the manual and stuff like that. Usually, if you don't know what the game is, it's a sort of like, the issue is there's a lot of like content, I guess, is the thing. It's a lot of it's a what do you call these? It's a looter shooter of sorts, right? It's a lot of like progression and going through and how do I get this item exactly? What are the steps I need to do? Whatever. And there's so many of these things you might want to have. But yeah, it can get kind of complicated. Another suggestion is oxygen not included, which I don't remember being that complicated at all. So, I mean, all right. I think my personal answer is, I think I have two answers. The first one is a game I think is the second most played game on my Steam account. It's called, you've probably never heard of it. It's called, well, Irving's heard of it. It's called From the Depths. Is a fairly not old. It's kind of old. It's not like Half-Life old. It's not like a Fortnite new. Somewhere between, pretty much. And the thing is, there's a lot of like optimizations to be had in the game. It's a vehicle combat game where you can build. It's a sandbox vehicle combat game, so you can build your own games. And the thing is, the physics calculations are very like particular in that game, with things like when this cannon shell hits the ship, how many blocks will it go through, and like is it going to bounce off of the surface, like a glancing blow, would it bounce off of like a surface? How big there's like things like hash shells, which is like I forget what it stands for. It's also heat. There's like real life tank rounds. It's like some technology they put into shells to make them better at murdering, I guess. So stuff like that, and like what is the exact amount of like different components I want on the ship to make things work perfectly. So there's that, right? Although I don't think it's not as complicated as the second thing I want to say, which is Hearts of Iron 4, which I think is probably the most like I have to look things up consistently type of game, at least at the start for sure, because the tutorial is horrible. The tutorial is probably hands down the worst tutorial I've ever seen in any game I ever played. Assuming at least for games that have tutorials. If the game doesn't have a tutorial, then okay, I guess you could say that's technically worse or whatever. But the tutorial has you doing something that I've literally had to coach someone through the tutorial. I had to explain how to get through it because it was too hard. It was too unclear. And I actually had a good start because I used to watch a lot of YouTube videos on it first, right? And this person didn't watch YouTube videos on it. So I watched a lot of YouTube videos on it first, like just watching gameplay, not really thinking I'd buy it ever, just like, oh, it's interesting, right? Very enjoyable. And so I just kind of figured things out by watching it. And then when I played it, it wasn't really a big deal, right? But there are like, when you get into like, once again, the optimizations, things like maximizing. So if you don't know, Hearts of Iron 4 is a grand strategy game where you can play as any country you want to. And at least by default in vanilla Hearts of Iron without any mods, takes place a little before World War II, in 1936, I believe, is the default start. I think you can also start the game in 1942. You have a choice. Essentially, it's like a World War II kind of game, right? You're managing these countries from a very like high-level perspective, right? But there is micromanaging things you can do. For example, the divisions of your army. So like divisions being like units, like a group of people in an army, right? So there are very specific common, like if you go to the division template maker or whatever, there are an incredible amount of stats that every division has, and some of them are self-explanatory, like things like supply use. It's like, okay, you don't have to, you kind of get like, this division has more people in it, and therefore it's going to be using up more supplies and whatever over time. Okay. Then there's things like, man, I can't even remember. Things like combat width. That is a very like gamey, in a very like thing that seems very simulatory, a very gamey thing of saying like the size of your division, right? So like for example, like a tank is bigger than a person, right? So you can say its combined size is considered its combat width, right? And like only a certain like there's certain specific numbers that work best. The meta has changed. I'm not up to date with the meta since they updated things, but it used to be, I'm pretty sure, the combat width that was great were 12 and 24, right? Very gamey thing to have in your simulation games. That if you have just too many people in your division or just too little, all of a sudden you're not in the meta anymore. You need exactly 12 or 24, I think, were the numbers, or it's 12, 20, and 40. I forget. And now it's like it's 12, 24, or multiples of 9 or something like that. It's something weird like that. And the reason being is because you can only fit a certain amount of essentially combined combat width in certain battles. So if you have multiple divisions attacking, you want to make sure that, say you have a combat width of, say, 40, right? If you have two units of combat with 22, that will not work. But if you have 2 units of 20, that works, right? If you have 2 units of 19, that'll work, but you're not using all the combat width you could, right? So then you have these sort of optimizations where, like, you're optimizing for whatever the normal combat width is for certain provinces. Each area has different combat width, maximum things, whatever. But yeah, that's just one aspect, right? But like, if you go to like the Hearts of Iron for division template thing, there are an incredible amount of stats that can be tweaked. And just changing around the divisions a little bit can, have quite incredible effects. Like, okay, for example, I'm looking at it right here, right? Things like breakthrough. What does that mean in terms of what it means that your division can do? Things like initiative, right? What is that? I know what that means because I read the manuals, right? But the tutorial will not explain you that. Things like trickleback. What is that? Reconnaissance, recovery rate, organization, soft attack, hard attack, air attack, defense, armor, piercing, entrenchment, combat width, as I said before, manpower, training time, etc., etc. There's just a whole ton of stats to look at. That's pretty much, I think, why I would say Hearts of Iron 4 is one of the most, probably the most manual intensive game I've ever played, and it definitely has the worst tutorial. So yeah.
Yeah. Just looking over your shoulder of you playing, and I was like, what the heck? And the UI does not help at all. Not whatsoever. Cool. Let me pull up this next one. So we'll see how Reddit has decided to format this page. Unknown. But this one is from me. So this one's just a headline, honestly. Let me pull it up real quick. Change. Okay. And let's see if it'll come up correctly here. So, no, it doesn't. So this proves that they are definitely doing different formatting for every page now. I have zero clue why. That's very inconvenient for our purposes, but maybe I'll come up with some intelligent solution later. But the headline is basically Epic Games Store rolls out random game ratings and polls. Now, I was confused by this because I was like, the way the title reads, it sounds like Epic Games is like randomly like like just giving ratings to people's and polls. But I actually opened the article, and the article says basically what they're doing is they're only giving the option to rate the game randomly to people. So yeah, as well as polls. And the reason for this is basically saying that it decreases the amount of I guess hate spam that might come out of game.
Yeah. I was just like putting that together while I was saying, like, oh, I understand why.
Yeah, exactly. And then for polling, it's because they don't want to bombard people with a bunch of things to try to get their polling numbers up. They can just sort of request it at the same time as they ask for the five-star rating system number. So I wanted to get your take on that. And should Steam do the same thing?
Yeah, certainly an interesting idea. So yeah, the problem they're trying to solve is it's more like certain games might elicit a certain aggressive response from a certain type of enjoyer, right? So let's say like you're a 5-star enjoyer of a game, or I don't know, let's say a game called, I don't know, whatever. Let's say, it doesn't matter, right? Let's say Fortnite, right? Maybe people who 5-star Fortnite, really enjoy Fortnite, they are really passionate and are really likely to give that a 5-star, right? Doesn't mean there are many of them, right? Doesn't mean there are many people who, I mean, obviously many people enjoy Fortnite, just detach it from the game. But doesn't mean there are many people who enjoy Fortnite, right? It just means that you might have, like, let's say, all right, let me restart and simplify this a little bit. So you have 20 people who play a game. 10 people dislike it, 10 people like it. And I want to say 10 people 1-star it, 10 people 5-star it, right? you expect to be like 2.5 average rating, or I guess since it's a 1 star and a 5 and not a 0 and a 5, it's something else, whatever. But you expect a mid-tier rating, just somewhere between 0 and 5 on it for the average, right? The issue though is that certain games you might have people who not only they like it, to 5 stars, but they really like it, right? So you might have all 10 of those people who like it that much as a 5 star. They all 5 star it, but the people who didn't like it, they're not going to bother reviewing it. So maybe only like 2 1-star reviews or whatever like that. And all of a sudden, it looks like the game is a lot better all of a sudden, right? Now, you can also have it the other way around, where people really dislike the game. You could have this with like games like cult followings, almost in a way, right? People would like, it's like there are not that many people, right, who like the game. It's just that when they do like it, they happen to really like it, and so they are really likely to rate it essentially. So I guess what Epic Games is trying to do here is, because by giving people like a random chance of being able to review the game, this sort of like I guess what it's supposed to do is it's sort of like if you're one of those people who really want to review the game because you're in this random pocket of people who really hate it or like it or really think it's mid tier or whatever it is, right? They you don't have that option essentially, right? It's just randomly given to you. Now, thing is, I'm wondering if the distribution is going to be the exact same, because the people who get the random chance are less likely to review it if they don't want to review it, and still more likely to review it if they want to review it. So I'm not actually sure how this solves the issue. Maybe if it's like something like psychological, where it's like, well, if I have the chance to review it, I'm more likely to review it regardless, because I don't always have the chance to review something, right? Maybe. I'm not really sure. Maybe if it like is a bit flashy, like, oh look, you can rate this game. You can't rate all games. I know you want to rate this game now, right? So that you can try to even the playing field and sort of get like a well representation of every sort of type of enjoyer, whether it's a low enjoyer or a high enjoyer or whatever in between. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not actually sure how big of a problem this is. I guess it's a big enough problem to have to try to address it. So I mean, I either see this going neutrally or well. I don't see how this could go poorly necessarily. So yeah, I guess it'd be nice if you could see something like the percentages of like I guess it wouldn't really work, huh? Yeah, never mind. Well, yeah, so that's all I have to say pretty much. I don't think it can go wrong, probably. I think.
Yeah. To me, it made a lot of sense. If I'm thinking I'm a vendor of things like this, and I'm going to have a rating system that's simple, like just 5-star system, I feel like the way that I would want people to experience it is that they have the most accurate rating of what the average person feels about it actually, because it's like the transparency problem in markets in general, right? Like the more data you have that's accurate flowing between persons, the more optimal in theory the decisions made should be in a hypothetical perfect universe, right? In this case, the way it affects you as the vendor is that if people are selecting games better for themselves, then they're going to enjoy your store, your platform better. And so you're facilitating them finding the game that they want to play. Although I feel like just the rating alone is kind of not enough, because you may enjoy plenty of games that the average person doesn't. So of course you need more data points than just average rating. It's probably not enough. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. 99 Crime said in the chat about the prior Reddit post. I don't know if I shared this before, but when I was playing Digital Devil Saga on the PlayStation 2, I was writing an Excel spreadsheet that kept track of every battle I encountered and the person I could win each fight. That reminded me of something. I forgot. Okay, so Hearts of Iron 4 will never match anything close to half of these MMOs that are out there. Like, people are creating these spreadsheets to play these games. I did see someone in the Reddit thing say World of Warcraft. I totally believe that. I don't play the game, but I know people have made spreadsheets for that game. I can imagine. So any spreadsheet game will definitely not even close to Hearts of Iron 4.
Yeah. All right. This next one is from Ben. So Ben, you want to explain?
Sure. So, this one here says another crash needs to happen in the gaming industry, and let me just okay. I'm just checking my audio, so it's a little loud. Okay, sorry. So I didn't quite understand what this meant, so I had to read it. There are 123 comments and 4 upvotes. So pretty controversial post. So this person says, the microtransaction and broken games that are infecting the modern gaming industry need to die out, and I don't see that happening because companies care about money too much. So in my opinion, another crash needs to happen. I guess there's been a previous crash in video games. I don't know. So the person continues, my sense is that now a lot of people have access to computers and technology. Anyone is able to make a game. So I think that small game devs will benefit from a gaming crash, and indie games actually care. Indie games that actually care about their game will survive, and AAA companies will either be forced to go out of business or start making good games again. So basically, I don't know if there's like some crash in the video game industry that occurred at some point. I don't know about video games, but this person thinks that another kind of crash in the video game market needs to happen to get rid of the terrible quality and microtransaction and games filled with bugs that are plaguing the industry right now.
Yeah, I assume the crash that's being referred to is the one in the 1980s. Oh, Nanocrime just said that. Yeah, 1983. I remember I used to know a lot about it. I read a lot about it. It's a very extensive like Wikipedia page and stuff like that. I forget everything. I forget why it happened. I forget like what happened. Which perhaps I should. I think it's probably an important piece of history to know. But regardless, I'm wondering if. Okay, so if you want, okay, let's ignore the argument of like whether or not resetting the industry is a good idea, but just would it happen if the industry crashed? I mean, I don't know about that, right? Because I mean, we see potential signs of a crash, right, or a perceived like insecurity by certain large companies potentially looking to be bought to become secure, right? So, if you get bought by, say, Microsoft, you get the infinite resources of Microsoft, and then you essentially do not die, probably, right? Yeah, if you're Activision, Blizzard, you're probably fairly safe in the case of a crash, due to the fact that you're fairly large, and the thing that owns you is also fairly large, right? It has the money to get through things. Now, I mean, you might see, I guess, on a crash on a smaller scale where the individual studios that make up Activision Blizzard start suffering, essentially, right? And so these studios have to be essentially stop existing, I guess, for that's what I mean. So would that happen? Yeah, I guess that'd be possible. I mean, certainly it's possible. I just don't know why this would happen necessarily. I'm trying to think, because I'm wondering, just thinking about like a simple supply and demand thing, right? People want games, where are they gonna go from them? I guess you could say like they're just going to indie game developers, right? But there's also amongst certain people a poor stigma against indie games, and I don't know if this is something that is necessarily, I don't know. I wish I knew the history of why it happened in 1983, and then maybe I could say, oh yeah, this is possible to happen again or something like that, right? But I'm trying, I'm at least on the spot without thinking about it too much. I'm trying to find I'm having a hard time finding a situation in which a purge of all these companies doing microtransactions and whatnot are going to disappear. I hate the term microtransaction using it as a blanket thing, right? Because I'm assuming this person does not care about Valorant skins, right? I'm just assuming. I assume they mean a bit more devious practices and stuff like that. So yeah, but aside from that, if it happened, would it actually be good for the industry? I don't know, right? Because then this I think relies on the idea that AAA is just bad for the industry, which I want to say probably, but it feels wrong to say that. I don't know why. it seems I don't know. I'm really having a hard time with this one because I'm having a hard time imagining what would happen. I think or like why things would happen and like how things would unfold. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, AAA isn't inherently bad, right? I guess you can say the state of AAA now is worse than it was before, so it needs to reset itself with the next new indie developers. Which, I mean, okay, the tactics that that AAA has used to get to where they are right now, right? Once they just die, wouldn't someone else just do it on the indie level and then become them again because they're very efficient in terms of making money? I mean, perhaps you could say, well, the culture is different in the indie and the AAA scene, right? So AAA tends to be more, corporate or whatever, and indie tends to care more about the art form and less about the money. But that's not everyone in the indie space. There are way more indie developers than AAA developers. So the odds of having your bad eggs in the indie dev section are incredibly high, right? So I don't know. I mean, certainly, ignoring job loss and whatever, it would be interesting to see it happen. I'm not gonna lie, it'd be interesting to see the companies get shuffled around. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Think about it.
I mean, I just want to interject with this falls into the fallacy that most people fall into, in that they think that market crashes affect somehow bigger players more than smaller players, when it's the literal exact opposite.
Yeah, I'm thinking like if you're as I said before, if you're Activision Blizzard and you're owned by Microsoft, in what world are you dying? This is a really bad situation. This is a bad situation for everybody in the games industry if you don't exist anymore. So I'm saying maybe like the little small developers, but things like Infinity Ward are not like dying. Like I feel like they're just too big to literally like huh.
No, I was just gonna say, just as a practical matter, right? Like when whatever's happening that's bad for so and so person, right, is happening, the bigger entity is always going to, or sorry, I shouldn't say always. In the current state of things, the bigger entity is going to benefit off of the economic downturn because it can always survive it. At the size companies that we're talking about, like EA, Activision Blizzard, those size companies, they can take out so much debt that they can survive off of the debt for years. Just the debt alone. Now, is that healthy, forever? Can they do that forever? No, they're not invincible. But that's, years is longer than your indie studio, which can do it for a week. So, it'll always outsurvive the indie studio on any economic downturn. Now, what happens to that demand when demand dries up in recessions, because people aren't as able to spend, right? But if you don't exist as an indie studio, there's only one place for it to go left. It's the big studios that are still left, and so they end up nabbing more customer at a net loss. But once they climb out, they might have a net gain, and then they can also go ahead and buy those smaller studios, for cheaper during the recession, when sometimes they can even buy IPs out of bankruptcy. So literally, the gigantic companies have 10 billion different options when everyone else is suffering, when the small companies have one or two options. So this scenario is kind of a fantasy, in my opinion. It just wouldn't happen. But I shouldn't say wouldn't. I mean, it can happen. It's just very unlikely.
Right. I think maybe the only situation which I don't know, this indie revolution could happen, or at least an idea is if they just made their products a lot better, and perhaps here's a free idea, right? Is leveraging off of the idea of recession and making your games cheaper, providing less game, so that I talked about this before. Your game is shorter, it's also cheaper, so it's less of a risk, right? Because if you're not doing well financially, you're probably like a $60 game might be a decent thing to think about. I don't want to buy this, or like, do I not want to buy it, right? If the game is like $10, the likelihood you're going to buy it is a lot more than the $60 game. If the risk is low, obviously make a good product, right? And if this would help you have like some sort of brand loyalty, right? So, or brand recognition, I say, right? So you have people are like, oh, a $10 game, they're not gonna ruin me, probably, stuff like that. Or I don't know, not necessarily 10, but lower than 60, right? You don't have to make a full size game, whatever. Perhaps you could make use of market trends and stay ahead of the curve that way. I don't know, that's my free idea.
That's a good idea. That's cool. Sweet. Is that it for arguing with Reddit?
I believe so, yeah.
Awesome. So if you're listening in post, this was Arguing with Reddit. And if you like this, hit the like button and stay tuned for our next episode where we have a very interesting topic that was spawned from last episode that we did. What's the exact topic, Ben? Want to tease it for us?
Yeah, I'm going to be talking a little bit about looking at two scenes, and I guess I'm going to call it being drawn into and being drawn out of a scene. A scene from the 2013 The Great Gatsby and from The Empire Strikes Back.
Sweet. So subscribe if you want to see that. All right. Here we go.
Mixed media music.
All right. Welcome to Mixed Media Music, the segment of the Mixed Media podcast, where I talk about all things related to music, film music in particular, but music as a broader phenomenon. And before we get started, let me introduce myself and have my co-hosts introduce themselves. So I am Ben Costello. I am a flute player and a media composer.
And I'm Irving Nestor. I'm a filmmaker and a media entrepreneur.
I'm Nathan Nestor. I'm a game developer and 3D modeler.
Okay, so before we get started, how's my volume for like on your guys' end? I've been playing around with it. Okay, playing around with the Audacity settings and whatever too. So I want to make sure it sounds okay and without clipping. Okay, so on today's episode of Mixed Media Music, I'm going to be discussing and kind of analyzing the way music works in two scenes from two films, and this topic, the idea for this topic came about during last week's Mixed Media Music episode. We were interviewing. I'm not thinking. Can't think of the guy's name. I'm drawing a blank. But we're interviewing a composer, video game composer, and I don't remember exactly how this came up, but I said it's somewhere in there that I wanted to talk about the way the music worked in these two scenes. So yeah, here we are. So we're going to be looking at a scene from The Empire Strikes Back and a scene from a very, very different film, the 2013 The Great Gatsby. And I might kind of give us a subtitle of being drawn into and being drawn out of a scene. Now, first, before we even look at the scenes themselves, what's the similarity here? Because these are very, very different films and very, very different film music. So the main thing that these are, I think the reason I thought of these two scenes and they do very different things musically too. But the reason I thought of these two scenes is because, to me, in both of them, the music kind of makes the scene, for better or worse. Okay. And these are scenes where, like, I think you kind of have to notice the music. And if the music it's one of those things where the music is not there and doesn't happen at exactly the right time, and the scenes don't work. They kind of are predicated on both scenes glances at people, either like people looking at each other without saying anything, or like a full, frontal shot of someone's face, and with music. So, and these are just two scenes that kind of have always stood out to me for what's happening in them. Now, again, they do completely different things, but the music is what makes the scene work for better or for worse. Okay. Now, with the disclaimer, of course, that this on pure audio format, right? I can never like really truly break down a scene, right? Because you can't see it, you can't see anything. And also, even if you're watching this live, I can't really do that because of copyright reasons. So I'm going to have to settle for describing the scene and the music. But hopefully, I have a really long list here of how I want to describe the music and the action. So hopefully I'll do my best. Also, spoiler warning, I suppose, if you've somehow if you've never seen The Empire Strikes Back, or if you've never seen or read the Great Gatsby and you don't want anything spoiled, I guess you might want to skip this episode. So should say that, but I don't think anything here is too crazy, but just in case, you don't want any of those movies or book ruined. All right, so let's start with The Empire Strikes Back, and we're gonna talk about the scene where Han is frozen in carbonite by Darth Vader. Okay, so if you are familiar with the film, you probably have a very vague, general idea of what this scene looks like, unless you're a huge Star Wars fan and like every line in this scene. Okay, so let's just I'm just gonna walk through this scene and what happens with the music. And I have said for a very long time, I find this scene for me is kind of it's like the masterclass in how to score a scene. In some ways, again, it's a scene where, like, if you remove the music, you're basically just getting a whole bunch of people looking at each other, which is kind of odd for Star Wars. It's a pretty like non-action based and non-dialogue driven scene, and it's just mostly just a lot of camera angles and framing and people looking at each other. Kind of unusual for Star Wars. So without the music, the scene is kind of silly. So the scene starts. We have Vader's going to freeze Han and carbonite, and our heroes minus Luke are, they're in captivity. They're being led up to this place where carbonite freezing takes place in Cloud City. So the scene starts with them being kind of led in this kind of prisoner procession, and what we get musically is we kind of have this really almost somber and kind of dragging version of the Imperial March. And now Empire is the first film that has the Imperial March. It doesn't happen in Episode 4, A New Hope. So we've heard it at this point probably 50 times in the film, but only in really massive, orchestration and, the way we kind of think of it when you think of the Imperial March. Again, massive, very like intense and intimidating. This is the first time we get a very different version of it. Like I said, it's kind of dragging in terms of its tempo. The rhythms are slightly different. It's just in the horns playing it, not the full orchestra. And so to me, that's interesting, right? We don't see Vader first. But right, we see them being led in by the stormtroopers. So we have the power of the empire, but it's not an overbearing thing. Like where music is communicating to us that right, the empire is in control here, but we're also getting the feeling of our heroes, right? They're dejected, right? They know they're being dragged up to something terrible. They don't even know exactly what's going to happen. Okay, so not like the brute force of the empire. It's the empire is present, but we're feeling what the characters are feeling. So the next kind of moment we get Vader. We get this kind of interesting shot. Well, first we get a few lines of dialogue between Vader and Boba Fett, saying, I'm going to freeze him in carbonite, and, I want him alive. He means a lot to me alive, whatever. And then we get this shot where we have the dialogue continuing, but we have in the frame, in the background, we see Fett and Vader talking, and in the foreground we have mirrored Han and Leia looking at each other. And the moment we get Fett saying that, like we get this hint that, he might not survive this being frozen in carbonite, and that's when we get the look, and we get the Han and Leia's love theme. Okay, so again, if we remove the music, it's a cool shot, but it's the music that's telling us what is happening in that look and communicating like the threat of death for Han and what is being communicated in the look between these two characters. Okay, so then we get a bit. So Vader announces what's going to happen. Chewbacca starts throwing stormtroopers around, and Han tries to calm him down. So that gets kind of some agitated music. That's not terribly important. But as Han calms Chewbacca down and kind of resigns, like there's no point in fighting here, right? We get Leia shooting a glance at Vader, and again we get the Imperial March, not in like the most massive form of it, but in the normal tempo and rhythm. So again, we get the music is communicating what is occurring in that glance, between Leia and Vader. Then the next kind of significant thing, right? We get a really long look between Leia and Han, and they kiss each other without saying any words. So love theme, right? Between as they're looking at each other and as they kiss each other. And then we get kind of the famous line where Leia says, "I love you," and Han says, "I know," as he's being led to the place where he's going to be frozen. And at that moment, that's where we get the love theme. Now, changed orchestration. We go up in key, and pretty much the entire orchestra plays it. So we kind of increase the emotion, right, of our love theme. So then we get kind of some kind of ominous music as the actual freezing occurs, and then we kind of actually get a lot of music actually cuts out, and we get just a lot of sound, sound design, I suppose. And we kind of get music again as we see them get the shot underneath. We're looking at this kind of like almost like a like one of those arcade games, like the claw, right? You pick up your you try to pick up your prize. We kind of get an shot looking up as this claw comes down to pick up the frozen Han, and that is when we get the full statement of the Imperial March and the all of its glory that we have heard throughout the film up until this moment. Okay, so then again, music kind of cuts out briefly for sound effects. We pull him up, and before we even see him, the workers throw the slab that he has become, slam it on the ground. At the moment it slams on the ground, we get the love theme again, but in a very dark and somber kind of just in the low strings, right? So that gives us, I guess, Leia's feelings there. Okay, so then we get a shot of Lando and Lobot looking at each other, and then Lando looking back at Leia, and we see a long shot of Leia's kind of dejected face, and Lando kind of clearly feeling guilty about what happens as we kind of get this love theme kind of dying out, even from its kind of already sort of dead version. And then Vader says, reset the chamber for Skywalker, and then immediately this officer shows up and says, Skywalker's just landed, my lord. And here what we get is the theme that has been used up to this point as kind of the sinister plotting of the Empire. I guess we could call it the theme of plotting to lay a trap. And as the scene continues, we get more shots of Vader and resetting this chamber for Skywalker, and Leia being worried and being led away, concerned about what's going to happen to Luke, and that the kind of trap theme is combined with the Imperial March. Okay, so again, I know it's kind of hard to imagine what I'm saying. Just if you haven't seen the scene, or if you go and watch it and see if you can pick these things out. But so, to me, again, if we take the music out of this, it's a pretty silly scene. But with the music, I think it's probably the most effective scene just certainly in the film. Again, it's a lot of people looking at each other, and whether they're literally looking at each other, you can see them looking at each other. We get one person and then flashing to the other person, facial, full facial shot of people. It's the music, and using these themes that we've already heard a lot in the film to this point, whether you're consciously recognizing them on your first hearing or not, what they're associated with. I think you can feel them, and that's really what's doing a lot of the communicating in this scene. It's telling us what is contained in these looks, and that's again something we really don't see very often in a lot of scoring today. I think what we tend to do is, even when we have things that are scored really well and match the mood of a scene, the tendency now is to kind of just match the mood of a scene and not kind of follow these glances of characters and try and tell us what each shot means. But that is not the approach Williams takes here. He's telling us what is being communicated in each shot, what each character is thinking and feeling in each moment, by matching each moment and matching what the director intends us to understand about the characters. So to me, that is being drawn into a scene. It's still an effective scene. I'm sure you could come up with a million other ways of scoring this scene. I think it would still be effective just because of how well done the movie is. But the music to me is what draws me into it, and kind of makes me convinced that these characters, are feeling real things and that I should care about them. So yeah, I call that being taken into or drawn into a scene. Okay, so I want to contrast that kind of what I think of as the masterclass of film scoring to The Great Gatsby, and I'm going to call that being taken out of a scene. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But the way that they're similar to me is that in both, I think when I watched them, even the very first time I watched them, I think it was apparent that the music was kind of playing the leading dramatic role in some sense. And that's why I kind of link these two, even if they have the opposite effect. Being with Gatsby being taken out of the scene. So this is a Baz Luhrmann film, and it's the music's executive producer is officially Jay-Z. So this is a 2013 film, and I think it's most remarkable for, at least for me, what got my attention. Granted, this came out like very shortly after I read the novel too, but what mostly caught my attention was the fact that Luhrmann makes a conscious choice to use a lot of hip hop music and kind of combine hip hop with jazz, but not 1922 jazz, very contemporary-ish, or not even contemporary. We'll say like 60s, 70s kind of jazz. Now the film and the novel are set in the summer of 1922. So why use hip hop? And that's the first question, because that plays into the scene that I'm going to talk about, where we finally see Gatsby for the first time. So I always thought, and I actually did look this up, and my conjecture back from 2013 is actually pretty much exactly what Baz Luhrmann said about why he wanted so much contemporary music. For him, what he felt is that a contemporary audience is not going to understand what the significance of jazz music was to people in the jazz age. So he felt like he could communicate that by using hip hop, essentially. That the kind of people who listen to hip hop in now 2013 are the same people who would be listening to jazz in 1922, and like that's the only way that at least in his mind, that we can understand like what the kind of music, the effect the music is having on these people, if we have music that has a similar effect in his mind on us as a general audience. Right, and now, if we look back in 1922, it's a very specific moment in music, where this is really the first year of Louis Armstrong's public career. A major jazz trumpet player, spans multiple eras of jazz. We kind of at the top of the musical world, we have the Paul Whiteman Orchestra. And I believe in The Great Gatsby, the novel itself, the Paul Whiteman Orchestra is the orchestra that's implied to be playing at Gatsby's party. And they go on to premiere Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue in 1924. Keep that in mind, because, again, technically that is 2 years after The Great Gatsby is set. The novel is written in 1924, in the year that the Rhapsody in Blue comes out. Okay, so I respect that artistic choice of trying to use music that would elicit a similar kind of response in his audience as jazz would have in the audience in the jazz age. So I respect that artistic choice. I don't think I liked it as much back in high school when I saw the film, but I can respect it a lot more now. But in the scene where Nick, our narrator, finally goes to Gatsby's party after being invited there, and he spends this whole party looking for Gatsby, and it's kind of confusing because there's the underscore that the film has that is just kind of a traditional like underscore, music in the background. And then there's also moments where we get this hip hop stuff that isn't clearly diegetic, but it's like, it seems like it's underscore as well. And then we also get hip hop as diegetic music, a music that is actually happening in the world of the film. And that's what we get at the party. It's not only just playing in general, but we literally have like some of the performers performing hip hop stuff and dancing to it and singing it, whatever. Okay, so hip hop is clearly the diegetic music of this party set in summer of 1922. which makes sense given the film to this moment. When we finally get the shot, we turn around, our narrator Nick, someone grabs him, he's talking to him, and we get a shot of him, from behind, and then he turns around and says, "Sorry for being a bad host. My name is Jay Gatsby," and we get this, nice long shot, front, just staring at Gatsby, Leonardo DiCaprio, and he's smiling, and we get so finally the moment where everyone's been talking about this guy and nobody knows who he is. And so here's Gatsby, and we get the fireworks going off in the background. And in this moment, we get the climax of George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. Now, I will preface this by saying that I am a huge Gershwin fan. I kind of think of Gershwin as almost like a guilty pleasure musically. It's an odd thing to say, maybe, but he's kind of looked down on. I think I feel by a lot of the classical establishment. Right? He's not really classical. He's not really jazz. Isn't who listens to him? It's like show tunes before Broadway. What is Gershwin? I actually think that when I started really paying attention to Gershwin towards the end of high school, that was one of those moments that kind of helped me sort of shift towards melody and really starting to appreciate things that aren't just strictly traditionally classical. So I love listening to Gershwin. So anyway, Rhapsody in Blue technically is, yes, it is premiered by the orchestra, but I think is implied in the novel to be playing at this party, which was very popular in 1922, but this piece itself comes out 2 years after the novel is set. But the main thing that I take away when I watch this film is that I can't help but notice this, right? Yes, we've been building up to this moment, obviously, as a film, right, and the narrative of a novel in the film, so it's going to have weight regardless. But if we just take away the music, right, it's just a shot of smiling Leonardo DiCaprio and some fireworks in the background, and we dwell on that for quite a while. It's not that interesting of a shot. It's the music that really makes this makes the moment land for us, and it's also it's impossible to not notice, because here we finally get music that actually belongs, if not literally 1922, in the correct era, right? So we finally have stylistically correct music. And not only stylistically correct music, you could take any tune the Paul Whiteman Orchestra had. I actually looked up, the top 100 songs of 1922 by LP sales. And Paul Whiteman Orchestra had 15 of a top 20. You could have pulled up any of their band tunes, and they would have been stylistically correct for 1922, but nobody would know them. But most people are going to recognize the climax of Rhapsody in Blue. So not only do we finally have a stylistically correct a moment of stylistically correct music, but it's music that a lot of people watching the film are going to recognize. And for me, that it kind of pulls me out of the moment. It kind of creates this meta moment. I when I watch this, every time I watch this scene, I watched it last night for the first time in a while. I'm left asking myself, and this is not a bad thing actually, but it's just to contrast with Empire Strikes Back, where I'm drawn into the world of the characters. Here, I'm drawn out of the film. And I'm like, wait, why? Why here do we finally get something that is stylistically appropriate and so well known? Why not at any other point in the film? It doesn't happen ever again in the film. It doesn't happen before this in the film. Why right in this particular moment? I don't think we can say it's the diegetic music, because we've already been shown at the party that hip hop is the diegetic music. So it makes me ask a whole bunch of questions. Like, what is authentic in this moment? Is the use of authentic music with Gatsby meant to show that Gatsby is somehow more authentic than everyone else in this kind of artificial world? Or is it the opposite, right? Is everyone else living in this authentic, not literally jazz age, but effectively 2013 jazz age world, and Gatsby is off in his own land, right? And because also the climax is such a well-known piece, is that artificial? Like, is that are we getting this because Gatsby is not only trying to, put on a 1922 show, but is trying to, give us like the loudest, most pompous, most over-the-top moment of 1920s music that anybody is likely to know, right? Is that again Gatsby kind of putting on this fake show of opulence for us? Is this moment like the most authentic moment of the film? Is it the least authentic moment of the film? Not only is Gatsby most authentic or least authentic, is the moment authentic or artificial? So I just think that there's no way not, if as long as you know Rhapsody in Blue and have some sense of the style of 1920s music, there's no way that this is I see it, there's no way you can see this scene and it's not going to leave them. Well, it's obviously going to call a lot of attention to it, and the music is again what makes it land. But there's no way that I think you can kind of see this and like not sort of ask yourself, like, why is this happening? Why is this musical choice being made right here to use the climax of Rhapsody in Blue? Why did we finally get something and never again get it, right? Is it something particular about this moment that is like the most authentic or least authentic moment in this film? So I'm at least left, feeling, yes, like the music is what, the sudden like impact of music right as Gatsby turns around and says, "I'm Jay Gatsby." Yes, that makes the moment like land with appropriate weight. I see you've been watching this film and kind of trying to follow our narrator, like in his desperation, and confusion. Who is this guy Gatsby that everybody talks about? And we've already been told that Gatsby is the only person, our narrator doesn't hate in the world. So yes, the music does a great job with that. But I'm also, I don't see how you can not be drawn out of the moment at the same time and ask yourself, why was this artistic choice made? So that's very different. Right? We have two scenes where I think the music is what makes these like long shots of people, frontal shots of people land, makes us understand what's going on. But in Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, I'm drawn into the world of the film all the more by the music. I'm drawn into the emotional states of the characters, and I'm left, more convinced about what they're feeling. Whereas in Gatsby, I'm drawn out of the moment and left kind of asking myself good artistic questions. I think it's actually very interesting. You could really dig into like authenticity in this film and in the novel. So I think these are good questions that are being raised, but I'm definitely drawn out of that scene instantly and left asking these questions. And then I had to kind of go back into the world of the film in the next scene. So yeah, two scenes that have always kind of stood out to me because of how the music works, and how they kind of work. I hadn't thought about this until last week when I mentioned this, but how the music really makes the scenes work. If you take the music out, the scenes don't work, and there are also scenes that are really music and like long shots of just people not saying anything. So two kind of very different scenes. One you're drawing me into the scene, kind of one taking me out, but definitely related in that way as in all the ways we've been talking about.
Very cool analysis. I really enjoyed that. That was very informative to me, even as someone who did not think about that particular choice at all prior to you talking about it. That was very good.
I noticed when you're describing the like one of the earlier scenes, Irving was just smiling.
Yeah, I have like a random. I guess Gatsby is a guilty pleasure for me. I don't know. I don't like describing it that way because I actually think it is a great movie. But you know, it's fascinating because like I watched the film probably. I think I watched it twice in a row. The first time I saw it, and I saw it. That was like in my first spurt of that was back in like my first spurt of like enjoying film for the first time and exploring and then I come across Baz Luhrmann, who I actually had seen his Romeo and Juliet in high school. Oddly enough, I have no idea the context as to why we would watch Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet because it's really, really weird. But I actually enjoyed the Romeo and Juliet as well, much more than my classmates who just couldn't stop laughing at the weird stuff, which I totally get. It's very strange. But there's something like rather impressionistic about everything he does. Like, it's like everything is like this, like just everything is just super about the raw emotion itself, no matter what gets collateralized because of it. Like,
I think I concur with that. You know, just watching it last night, my impression is like it's definitely a much better film than I remember it being when I watched it, you know, years ago. I think I was just so like probably just hung up on like on the fact that the music was just not 1920s, but you know, silly high school Ben. But I mean, I think the film is better, like much better quality than I remember, and I think it's not like. Yeah, I think impressionistic is a pretty good way of describing what he's going. He's going after like the emotion more than the literal.
It's like literally like, everything else is a casualty. Like
yeah, like there's in the novel. Like granted, it's been ages since I've read a novel too, but like at the beginning, right where Nick goes to, you know, the apartment that Tom has like set out for his you know, Mistress Myrtle and a bunch of other, you know, girls that he invites up there. Because I think the novel makes a much bigger deal when like Tom gets into a fight with Myrtle and slaps her when she like insults Daisy, his wife, and like that's in the film, but like it's just kind of in the background and like you know, our narrator is kind of just like he witnesses it, but he's like it's just like part of like one scene, and he looks at and sees like all these other scenes of people, you know, like living their lives in the windows of these apartments in New York. It's much less like, you know, major scene than it is in the novel, but it's like one impression amongst many of like life in New York.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what that is. 100%. What you were talking about reminded me also of the scene where Nick, I believe, is in their downtown apartment. I can't remember what they call it. In Tom's downtown apartment, and I think they were just after Rager, and he's like looking out the window, and he just sees like a saxophonist just soloing. Yeah,
and that's like right. I'm trying to remember if that's like right before, right? I think it was right after Tom like slaps Myrtle, but like we don't really see that very well. It's like it happens in the background. We're mostly focusing on like saxophone player and all these, you know, the kaleidoscope of lives outside.
Yeah, you know, but that was interesting about that is that the saxophonist is jazzing. It's not like he's doing some like street hip hop with his saxophone, right? Like he's like in the time, and that's like.
Well, that's a little. It's not 1922 jazz.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, I wouldn't know.
It's jazz.
Yeah,
but not quite 1922. You know, I'll put a link. You know, in this. I'll give, you know, send you some links of some music that was like really popular in 1922. Kind of fascinating to hear what was popular in 1922.
Yeah. Very awesome analysis for sure. 909 Crime apparently agrees. Cool. All right, is that pretty much it?
That's all I have.
Okay, you want to take us out then, Ben, for the night?
Sure. Well, thank you for stopping by and watching or listening to us if you were watching and listening live, or thank you, for listening to us, watching us if you watching this in post. We always, enjoy hearing from you. So, we also keep our discussion going during the week on our Discord. So definitely check out our Discord. You can get the link to our Discord server and also all the places you can listen to and view our podcast. If you look on there we go, on the right at mixedmediapodcast.com. So definitely join us there. And if you have any thoughts on what we did well, what we can improve on, definitely make sure you leave comments on whatever ratings on whatever platform you're watching or listening to us on. So yeah, that's it for tonight. Definitely a lot of great stuff. Check out the other episodes we on this week's Mixed Media. We had Arguing with Reddit from Nathan, and an interview with one of Irving's Auriela Productions interns talking about 3D modeling and video games, so video game design. So definitely check those out as well. Yeah, I think that's about it.
One last thing, shout out to 909 Crime and Rob Sharma for supporting us at mixedmedia.locals.com. And you can join them by going to mixedmedia.locals.com. And for $5 a month, there's a bunch of perks that you can check out there that you can enjoy.
All right. Well, once again, thank you for joining us, tuning in live or watching, listening to us once this episode is released. Have a good night to everyone watching us.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
But I'm moving in, I bet I show it into a dim. How you hate and then lose again? How you hating my vibes? Why you wasting my time? Getting hype on my line. Tell a man I don't want feedback, I just want relax. Brand new whip, two-tone, I need that brand new hit. Like lean back, brand new bits I live in. We back, man, you never gonna like us.